Today, Fujifilm have announced a brand new camera, the X-H2S. Now, this obviously follows on from the X-H1, which is a popular camera, especially for video. And absolutely, that is the case again here with the X-H2S. You can see by the size and the look of it, it shares quite a lot in common with the X-H1, but there's some seriously good video spec in particular with this camera. But that's not to say it's no good for photo. I actually took it out around London. I was trying it out with kind of a bit of street photography and various types of photography out and about elsewhere as well. This absolutely holds its own in that side of things, which makes it a great hybrid system. So let's talk a little bit about some of the spec that you're getting with this camera. Now, you've got a 26 megapixel X-Trans V-stacked back illuminated CMOS sensor in here, which gives, frankly, lovely results. Now, in terms of color, as you'd expect, Fujifilm colors are fantastic. They look so nice. When I've been using this, to be honest with you, it's been a little bit cloudy. It's not been the best weather, but even with that, the colors really do shine through from a Fujifilm like this. Using things like the film simulations, like the Eterna film simulation for video, it really does show how beautiful that stuff can look, and the footage I thought looked fantastic. We've got the X Processor 5 in here, which makes the camera nice and fast, but it's also handling those low light situations really well as well. So as I've been cranking up the ISO, I haven't had any problems with this. I haven't had any problems with noise. I've been able to shoot with kind of slower lenses or shoot stop down if I want to get a much deeper depth of field and not worry too much about that ISO because I'm able to get such good noise performance. It's also nice and speedy when it comes to taking continuous shots. So you've got 15 frames a second in continuous shooting mode, and you can shoot 40 frames a second blackout free with the electronic shutter. It also goes up to 1/8000th of a second shutter speed, which is great if you want to do sports or wildlife or something like that. Now let's talk about video, because I think that's really where this camera does shine. It's able to shoot 6K up to 30 frames a second, 4K up to 120, and 1080 up to 240. Now that's 422 10-bit up to 720 megabits a second. So you're getting extremely high quality video from this. That means it's great for content creators, great for kind of freelance videographers, but all the way up to higher productions. You could absolutely use this as a B cam with some kind of cinema camera as your main camera, but you could actually use this as your main camera for some really quite high-end production stuff. Interviews, actual narrative, kind of short film, stuff like that. This would be great. Part of the reason for that is because of how small and lightweight it is, it's very easy to shoot handheld. So everything I shot was obviously handheld. That tends to be what I do because, you know how a gimbal is going to work, but it's interesting to see how is a camera going to perform handheld with video. And something that helps this out is, of course, the in-body image stabilization. That's up to 7 stops. And you can really feel it when you're shooting. You can really feel that that's kicking in and helping you out. Now, that's always interesting. I tried a little bit of walking with it, obviously panning, moving the camera around, and that did seem to work really well. It's also very easy to color grade that footage as well. So there's a lot of room to kind of change things in post, give something a certain look, which is always great, especially if you're doing something like commercial videography. You want to give something a very stylized look, or maybe a short film where you want a very stylized color grade to tell a story, or really anything like that. There's a lot that you can do with the footage coming out of this camera. The autofocus was really good. So photography, video, it just seemed to work. Now, I used it in 2 different ways. I used it with tracking, I used it with kind of letting the camera to select what to focus on, and then I used it where I was using a point which I was moving around the screen. Now, both were really good. I think I probably preferred moving the point around the screen myself, but that's not to say that the subject detection and stuff like that didn't work, because it did. It was actually really good, whether I was shooting people, kind of landscapes, or animals. It was actually just drawing a box around the person or the building or whatever it was that I was shooting at, and it was actually tracking that really well. It seemed to work pretty much every time with very few kind of misses. Certainly no hunting or anything like that. Nothing that was really detrimental to my shooting. I did use a little bit of manual focus to get shots like this one where I was trying to shoot through a bus because the autofocus would switch to the bus. But I think that kind of makes sense. That's kind of fair enough because it's a difficult one for the autofocus to work out what I'm trying to do. And something else I love, and this goes for kind of all Fujifilm, not necessarily just this camera, is just the amount of stuff you can do in camera to affect the look of either your photos or your footage. So obviously you've got the film simulations, which are beautiful. You know, we've known about them for so long now, but they are always such a joy to shoot with. So the Eterna for video, I just love the look of that. You know, different things for photo as well. Across looks great. There's lots of really nice film simulations in camera. And then you've got some creative filters as well that you can apply to photos and things like that, which is always really nice to have available to you. It's not something you'd use all the time, but to be honest, it is definitely worth kind of playing around with. Now, of course, you've got HDMI type A, you've got a mic input, headphone input, USB-C, which you can use to charge as well, and a 2.5mm remote release. The EVF is especially nice. It's an OLED EVF with 5.76 million dots. It's very, very detailed and clear, and it looks great. It's a lovely way to shoot with this camera, but you've also got the tilting screen as well, which obviously folds out. Now, I've mentioned before, I love this because it means for someone like me, who is generally a solo shooter, I get to actually use this to see myself if I'm filming myself. Like in a situation right now, I would be able to see myself on the screen, check the framing, check the focus, all that kind of stuff. I'd know if there was an issue. I think for videography, more so than photography, it's a really, really useful tool to have. So in a camera like this, where it's obviously focused towards videography, it's a really useful thing. It's also a touchscreen, which is probably to be expected at this point, but it means you can change focus, operation, stuff like that with the screen itself, which is always useful. You've still got the LCD screen on the top of the camera as well, which shows you different information, which actually is the kind of thing that, because I don't shoot with these cameras that often, I always find, wow, this is actually really useful. It's actually a really interesting thing to be able to see at a glance just by looking down like that. I like, you know, having the dial on the left and stuff like that, but actually having that information displayed pointing up like that, super useful. Now, in terms of battery life, I shot with this for probably the best part of about 4 or 5 hours, taking all kinds of photos and videos. And I ran through probably about a third of the battery. So it's rated to have 600 shots available with the battery. It's the NPW235. But to be honest, it feels like it could definitely take a lot more than that. In terms of card slots, we've got 2 card slots here, which is really nice. You can actually easily decide where you want to record things to as well. Maybe you want to record to both, or maybe you want to record high quality video to one and then low quality video to another. There's lots of interesting ways you can kind of set that up. We've got SD card and CF Express Type B, which is really useful for those high frame rate, high resolution video shots. So 6K 30 frames a second, 4K 120 frames a second, and then you've got SD to kind of back up onto. So you can still use that for, you know, your photos. You can still use that for 4K up to kind of 50, 60 frames a second, which is really nice. So you've got a lot of different flexibility for how you want to record. Of course, you could record externally as well. That would always be a great option if you're doing either longer pieces or if you're doing something dedicated in terms of video. That'll always be a great option with a camera like this because you can get such high quality video. But that CF Express Type B means you are getting very kind of high quality files, which can be bigger because it's much faster. Always good to see 2 card slots as well. Overall, it just definitely feels like a very professional video capable system with some extremely capable photography stuff in there as well. So if you're a hybrid shooter, if you're a content creator, I think it's going to be a great option, right? If you're a solo shooter like me who goes out and does freelance stuff for businesses, for clients, this is going to be a great option. You could definitely build kind of a bit of a rig around this in terms of monitors and microphones and all that kind of stuff. But it also works kind of as a run and gun camera with that in-body image stabilization, which is super useful. You could use this on a larger production, like I said, but this is just a very flexible system. You know, you can use it like that solo shooter for that content creation, or you can use it in a much bigger rig with all kinds of stuff on it as part of a larger production. There's a lot that you can do with this camera. Now, if you want to check out the camera for yourself, the full spec, all the stuff about it, go and check out the link down in the description. There's all the things, pricing, spec, loads of fun stuff to go and check out. There's also the lenses down there as well, which we used with the camera, including the 2 new lenses, so you can go check them out as well. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. There's new content all of the time. But all that's left for me to say is, until next time, as always, thanks for watching.